Jannik Sinner makes a decision, and Carlos Alcaraz accepts the challenge. The Italian tennis player, absent since the Davis Cup and a key figure in Carlos Sainz's farewell from Ferrari, now knows he will face Alcaraz on all fronts at the start of the year. After winning the Davis Cup for the second consecutive year in Malaga and dominating the ATP Finals 2024, Jannik Sinner disappeared to focus on resting and preparing for the upcoming season while criticism over his positive test in Indian Wells continued to mount. He also learned that both the Masters tournament and the Davis Cup would be held at home in the coming years. The Italian finally reappeared this weekend, but in a sport far removed from tennis. He was one of the main figures in Carlos Sainz's farewell to Ferrari. Sinner attended the Yas Marina circuit to watch the Formula One race in Abu Dhabi from the Italian team's box. The red cars performed impeccably, with Sainz and Leclerc finishing second and third, but they could not secure the Constructors' Championship after Norris's victory in the final Grand Prix of the season. Sinner will now begin training with a tough challenge in mind. Like Carlos Alcaraz, the Italian will not play any preliminary tournaments and will enter competition directly at the Australian Open. This approach worked for him last year when he won the title, breezing through the early rounds and defeating Djokovic in his tournament before coming from behind to beat Medvedev in the final. Sinner and Alcaraz set dates in Rotterdam and perhaps Doha. His next appointment is the ATP 500 in Rotterdam, where he also defends all his points, having won last year. He has announced that he will play in Qatar, which has been upgraded to an ATP 500, before traveling to participate in Indian Wells. The Rotterdam tournament runs from February 3 to 9 on indoor hard courts, favoring his major rival, but Carlos Alcaraz is determined to improve in such conditions after his recent performances. The Qatar tournament takes place from February 17 to 22. The only issue with such a packed schedule is that Spain must play its Davis Cup 2025 tie against Switzerland between the Australian Open and these tournaments, January 31 and February 1 or February 1 and 2, 2025. It remains to be seen if Carlos Alcaraz will participate in a calendar already loaded and potentially even more demanding. In the first event, he will face a new challenge. Carlos Alcaraz, after his poor experience last year switching to clay and playing in Buenos Aires and Rio de Janeiro after Melbourne, will now follow Sinner's footsteps and challenge the number one on his turf. The Spanish player has already announced that he will compete in Rotterdam, where he was once rejected, and it remains to be seen if he will also join Doha, setting up a potential triple Sinner-Alcaraz showdown to start the season. Logic suggests this rivalry could continue into the next two major events, Indian Wells and Miami. Djokovic's fierce warning to Alcaraz and Sinner for 2025. Djokovic clarifies that his retirement has no expiration date. What kind of season has Novak Djokovic had? It's a challenging question. On one hand, the Serbian withdrew from the ATP Finals after failing to win any Grand Slams in 4 attempts. However, he achieved his primary goal of winning a gold medal at the 2024 Olympics in Paris. Mixed feelings aside, the Belgrade native would likely have accepted this outcome in January. One thing is clear, this will not be his last season, as he feels ready for another tour. In a recent interview, the 24-time Grand Slam champion admitted to regaining the energy needed to tackle 2025 with the same hunger as always. His goal is to expand his schedule to multiply his chances of success, though he admits nothing motivates him more than the 4 majors, tournaments where he has left an indelible mark as a champion. Without a defined retirement date, the current world number 7 sends a warning to the locker room. Djokovic's warnings. I feel completely ready to return to competition, both physically and mentally. I feel I can continue competing at the highest level with the best players, and the experience I've gained over the years can be a great asset. For this reason, next year, I plan to play more tournaments, though my main focus will remain on the Grand Slams, as they are the most important events for me. My goal is to give my best and fight for victory, as long as my body allows me to. Right now, I feel good and still have time to rest and reflect on what I can improve to face the next season stronger. My hope is that next year will be better than this last one. While I'm motivated to keep going, I'm also aware of the importance of taking care of myself and working on whatever is necessary to stay competitive in the future. No expiration date for his retirement. My goal is to continue writing the history of this sport, although I still feel like I'm studying every detail and constantly learning. Tennis has given me so much over the years, and I feel incredibly fortunate to keep competing at the highest level. As long as I have the opportunity to stay at the top, I'll keep playing because my passion for this sport remains intact and my desire to compete is still strong. Sinner and Alcaraz already know what awaits them. If they truly want to take definitive control of tennis, they will have to face the last member of the Big Three repeatedly. This is a stage where competition is becoming increasingly intense, but I'm still ready to fight for my place in history and remain among the best, regardless of the challenges that arise. Tiafoe and Stevens don't believe Carlos Alcaraz's words. This year has been a big challenge for me. Carlos Alcaraz opened up about his season, admitting it had been challenging for him, leaving some players baffled during a press conference ahead of the Charlotte Invitational. An exhibition where Tiafoe defeated Alcaraz and Keys dominated Stevens marked the second in a few days for Alcaraz, who also competed in the Garden Cup. But for the American duo, winning 2 Grand Slams in a season and still lamenting a poor performance at other times was more surprising. Perhaps it's hard for a winner like Alcaraz to face 2025. Despite winning 2 Grand Slams, the second half of the season wasn't his best, as the court speed was an issue in Paris and Turin. He also struggled to recover after losing the Olympic gold to Novak Djokovic. He cried after winning the silver medal, and like Iga Świątek, he never regained his best form. Meanwhile, Jannik Sinner dominated the end of the season, winning the Australian Open, the US Open, and the ATP Finals. Alcaraz also had to deal with numerous injuries, so while some may be puzzled, his verdict is valid. I'm not used to dealing with so many injuries, and this year has been tough for me during the clay season, but I finished strong, declared the 4-time Grand Slam champion. But at the same time, I look back and think I've had a pretty good season. I'm very proud of what I've done to overcome the problems I've had and the doubts I faced. Overall, I'm happy with everything I've learned this season, and I hope that in 2025, I can try to replicate or even improve on it. Seriously? Tell us about it, laughs, said Stevens. It's tough to win 2 majors. I hope you don't have another season like this. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Here at Tennis Zone, we are dedicated to bringing you the best content for the best audience. We provide in-depth analysis, exclusive interviews, and comprehensive coverage of everything related to the world of tennis. Join our community and be part of the excitement of the tournaments with us. At Tennis Zone, we strive to deliver high-quality, up-to-date content about players, tournaments, strategies, and the most relevant events in the tennis world.